Just like to welcome our participants. Thank you for joining us on our Dark Sky Tourism webinar. Just while everyone's entering our webinar room, if I can draw your attention to something we've been doing during the course of this week, is just to ask where you are all from. And to do that, we have a facility called menti.com we'll be using, which you should be able to see on your screen now. And if you have a smartphone or another browser window, and you can pop in the code pop in the URL menti.com, and then you'll be asked for a code. And the code is on the screen, but I'll just read it out. It's 46414166. And there's also a QR code for you to use if you prefer. So we'll just I know there's quite a lot of people to join us this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. So we'll just give a minute or two, and we're looking forward very much to this event ahead. Just to welcome you in general to International Dark Sky Week. This is the 5th year in a row that Mayo Dark Skies has hosted International Dark Sky Week. And under normal circumstances, we would be physically moving from a different community, a different dark sky community around the Mayo Dark Sky Park. Obviously, on this occasion, that's not possible. And so we have been doing the next best thing to visit our locations. And we've had a virtual host every evening starting in Newport, then in Clare Island, then in Achill Island, then in Ballycroy. And we will move to Inishturk and to Mulranny over the weekend. So we have a full week of events. Again, just a little bit of housekeeping on Zoom. Once the webinar opens, you'll be able to make comments in a chat box. So if we can direct any comments or greetings into the chat box, and if you have questions for our panelists, if you could please put them into the questions and answers box. And myself and Margaret Flaherty will be co-hosting today, and we will be checking the questions and answers box. So folks, I'll stop sharing the screen now. We'll pop that Menti code in, but to open the event, I'd be very, very pleased to hand over to William Cormacan, the Regional Manager for National Parks and Wildlife Service, to officially open our webinar. Over to you.
Thank you, Georgia. Fáilte Ireland and welcome. As Georgia said, my name is William Cormacan. I have the privilege of being the Regional Manager in the Western region of the National Parks and Wildlife Service, which includes the Wildlife and Ballycroy National Park, which is also Mayo Dark Sky Park. You are all very welcome to this special webinar event, which is being held as part of International Dark Sky Week. Here at the Mayo Dark Sky Park, we are having a very ambitious and to date successful schedule of events to celebrate the week. In 2016, the International Dark Sky Association awarded the Wildlife and Ballycroy National Park a gold tier accreditation as a dark sky park. This was in recognition of our pristine dark skies. The Mayo Dark Sky Park is very much a community driven, and it is a collaboration between the local community, public bodies, including the National Park, and other stakeholders. Especially during crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic, the importance of the outdoors and dark skies is even more evident in terms of our mental health and well-being. Having a dark sky park on your doorsteps creates huge opportunities for communities, especially in terms of astrotourism. We are a very young dark sky park and are keen to learn and build on the experience of other dark sky sites and their associated communities. It is our intention here at Mayo Dark Sky Park to create a world-class site which protects both dark skies and natural heritage and wildlife. I would like to particularly welcome our speakers today, who provide a real international dimension to the webinar. I will now hand over to my colleagues, Georgia Macmillan, and Georgia is the Mayo Dark Sky Park Development Officer, and Margaret Flaherty, who's the Supervisory Guide in the Western region of National Parks and Wildlife, who will host today's event and introduce the speakers. I hope you will all enjoy this webinar and the rest of the events to come for International Dark Sky Week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, William. Well, folks, we might just take a look at where you're all joining us from just for a few seconds before we move into the event proper. So I'm just going to share our Menti screen again and take a quick look and welcome you all. And let's have a look now. So we have Newfoundland, obviously with us on the panel as well today, which is great. Welcome to Murcia in Spain, Westport, they're strong in force, which is great. Mulrani, we have Dublin, we have Achill, so we have great representation from the Mayo Dark Sky communities. We also have Portmarnock in Dublin, you're welcome. We have Hackney in London. We have Clifton and Connemara, our neighbours, our Dark Sky neighbours, which is great. Kilmena, Clubay, Galway, you're all very, very welcome, and thank you for joining us. And we hope that this will be of use to you in the future for dark sky, building a dark sky friendly presence for dark sky tourism. Which leads me to just to talk about this event. So, sorry, I'm just going to change the slide here. 1 second. So that we're on. Yes, we have, we're very proud to have a Dark Sky tourism event hosted today. And I wanted to just introduce you to Mayo Dark Sky Park. So just to say where we are located for anyone that's joining us from abroad. We have a picture of Ireland with the lighting, and here we are in the northwest corner in a very dark spot, as you can see. This is the Mayo Dark Sky Park on the right, with the core centre of the park, and 3 of our viewing points for visitors to come and see. Just near to Newport, we have Wildnayfin. Just behind Mulrani, we have Clagan Mountain Coastal Trail, and then the home of the visitor centre, Ballycroy, and the village just north there. So here's a couple of pictures just to whet your appetite for what's in the Dark Sky Park. This is the Letterkeen Bothy in Waldnayfin, and again here. And this is the Clagan Mountain Boardwalk. And these photos were taken by Brian Wilson, a local astrophotographer. And our recent poster by Tyler Nordgren to set the scene that half the park is after dark. And that's really one of the messages we wanted to get across with our Dark Sky tourism event. Last week, there was a publication called Our Rural Future, a rural policy document. And this really puts the emphasis on dark skies and why it's so important to us in rural Ireland and for a dark sky strategy. And if I can just quote to set the tone for the event, the policy sets out to develop a new dark sky strategy with a focus on opportunities that this unique blend of tourism and science can create for rural tourism. So I think that just sets the tone of why it is important for us as collective communities to look at dark skies as new initiatives in our recovery period. So without further ado, we have some fantastic speakers lined up for you. And the first I'm going to introduce you to now is Sonal Askutra from India. Sonal leads a community-led tourism initiative called Astro Stays. It makes model places sustainable, and it has community development at its core. And her project aims to empower local communities by diversifying economic streams and creating new opportunities for livelihood through astrotourism. The model is an innovative form of experiential tourism that generates economic benefits directly for remote regions that have access to clear night skies, creating unique and engaging experiences for the travellers. So on that note, you're very welcome, Sonal. Thank you for joining us in Ireland, so all the way from India. So we look forward to hearing more about Astro Stays, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Georgia, and thank you very, very much for having us at the Dark Sky Week. I mean, it's our first time here in very excited to be a part of it. So without further ado, I would just share my screen. I hope my screen is visible now.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are on the planet. My name is Sonal Gotra, and I'm the program leader for Astro Stays. It's a community-led astrotourism model, and we have been working in implementing Astro Stays in the highlands of Himalayas. So let me take you on a journey to the Himalayas. Just to set a little bit of context about the current astrotourism scenario. It is called astrotourism, but astrotourism still has not been integrated very well into the mainstream tourism. And one of the reasons that it has happened is that because of the cross-disciplinary nature of astrotourism. I mean, it's not just tourism, it's astronomy and tourism. For the tourism folks, the tourism industry, it's usually considered a luxury science and probably something that requires really complicated infrastructure and setups in order to set on that path to bring astrotourism into the regions which have access to clear dark skies. But that being said, the whole concept of astrotourism has expanded a lot over the years, just from a textbook definition of going for stargazing to dark sky areas to now being considered as one of the most authentic and one of the most sustainable forms of nature-based tourism. The concept has evolved significantly over the years. But the biggest challenge with astrotourism that has remained is that despite the fact that the best vantage points for astrotourism are remote, and there are so many local communities that are that live in the vicinity of this area or reside in the area that have access to clear dark skies, have never been able to benefit from astrotourism the way tourism has helped to drive economies in other scenarios. So, for example, nature-based tourism or wildlife tourism. But astrotourism in particular has not been able to provide the kind of socioeconomic benefit that it could actually do for all those communities which are located in these lesser known and remote regions. Now, in a post-COVID world, nature-based tourism or regenerative tourism, as it is now being called, has risen very, very strongly. People are actually moving from tourism hotspots and built-up regions to all of these remote regions to not just explore nature, but also to offbeat destinations which actually were ignored in a pre-COVID world. And this, puts astrotourism in a very beautiful perspective. So astrotourism, one of the biggest assets of astrotourism, which is the clear night skies, never have to be maintained or developed. So it is, not just authentic, but it's also a very sustainable form of tourism. And it also has the power to directly bring economic benefits directly into the remote communities. So with that thought, the concept of Astro Stays actually began. In 2018, we had collaborated with the International Astronomical Union Office of Astronomy for Development to create this unique model where we wanted to see Astro Stays through the lens of community experiences. Now, astrotourism, to a layman, is basically going to an astronomy institution for observatories or planetariums, or most of the astrotourism is led by amateur astronomers who lead these stargazing sessions. But how about training the communities who live in these remote areas to basically give them that skill where they can conduct stargazing sessions and the other merging it with other activities that they could do in their areas to create this model? So a little bit of context about our organization, Global Himalayan Expedition. We work in the Indian part of the Himalayas. We basically set up solar microgrids in very remote and rural Himalayas. So the Himalayas, as you know, is a huge mountain range. It starts from the Afghanistan in the west, extends to Pakistan and India, Nepal, Bhutan, and then finally ends in Bangladesh. And we work in the Indian part of the Himalayas. And even though it's home to more than 50 million people, there are still 450 million people which are settled at the base. And it is one of the most fragile ecosystems on the earth. But still, despite the fact that it's fragile and climate change has actually impacted that area a whole lot, the people residing in this area have still managed to preserve the century-old culture and heritage of their regions. It has been part of, the traditional Silk Route, and people still hold on to their culture amazingly. And one of the biggest assets of Himalayas is definitely the clear night skies. And I think in the last decade, Himalayas have actually seen a resurgence in tourism where people from all over the world come for treks and hikes. But mostly what happens is that in an economy which is driven so much by tourism, the benefits of the tourism still haven't gone back to the local communities. So we wanted to explore that. How about using this untapped resource of the dark night skies and training the local communities to see if we could look at astrotourism from a whole different lens? And this is our team. So one thing that I wanted to say was that none of us are astronomers. We are actually all electrical engineers. And I think because of that, we were able to see astrotourism probably in a new light, not looking at it from the perspective of an astronomy institution or just looking at it from astrophotography or amateur astronomers, but looking to how we could actually bring local communities directly into the tourism value chain. So the way we begun was that we handpicked around 35 people from 15 villages in order to train them on the basics of astronomy and know-how of Dobsonian telescopes. So it wasn't really very hi-fi science, because the gamut of people that we had in our training sessions and the workshops who had signed up for it ranged from people who had never been to school to people who were high school dropout or were just pursuing their education through online programs or distance education. So it was very important first to demystify and deconstruct the basics of astronomy to an extent that they could actually feel confident in taking all of those sessions with the travelers and tourists. And the second very interesting thing that we saw in these sessions was that out of 35 people, 30 were women, and it wasn't by design. We are always asked that why is it a women-centric program? It's really not. Ladakh is actually a very, very tourist-centric economy. I mean, the major driver of economy there is tourism. And what happens is the male members, when the peak season hits, which is almost from April to, I would say, October, they move out from remote locations to areas like Leh, which is the capital, and where most of the tourism happens, to actually work as guides or porters or chefs, basically engaging in some thing or the other in the tourism industry. And it is the women who actually stay back as homemakers, looking at the daily chores or maybe running some homestays and basically have nothing to do at night. So we thought, okay, how about training them on these basics and see that if they can do stargazing sessions at night, because generally there is always something to do in the daytime, but astrotourism in general is considered as something to do when you have nothing to do. So how about giving a structure to it and curating those engaging sessions for the travelers? So we did this training sessions, and I would just like to play a small video, and just 1 second. So this video will give you a little context of how the AstroStays model actually works. How does astronomy and tourism and homestays, all of this integrate to create a very, very holistic model?
हमारा 4 लेडी लोग और मैं, हम लोगों को एक टेलीस्कोप ऑपरेट करने की ट्रेनिंग दिए थे। 3 दिन का था वो। तो वहाँ पे हम लोग साइंटिस्ट लोग जो बेंगलोर से आए हुए हैं, तो वहाँ पे उन लोगों से मिलके उन लोगों से हम थोड़ा ज्ञान ले आए और टेलीस्कोप कैसे हैंडल करना है. इस गांव में काफ़ी टूरिस्ट आता है, तो टेलीस्कोप के ज़रिए हम उनको कुछ स्टार और कुछ प्लैनेट दिखा सकें.
Tiang ada lala si met garder sala dola si tendu kwa jing dik cinta tendari tendu kwa tiang yong amin ule tiang res pa yong ada yong pa yong go yang diton ring yo cha pali.
Just share back my presentation. So this was basically a brief glimpse of how the AstroStays model actually works. We have tied the local communities very, very strongly in the entire value chain, which in the traditional astrotourism, they remain significantly absent. And we've also linked it very strongly to the SDGs, because you really need to measure and monitor what is it that you are trying to implement. And this is actually a very, I would say, a very new intervention for them. So, we are looking at goals like women empowerment, increasing scientific temper, livelihood creation, and basically boosting local economy through bringing money directly into the local communities. And one beautiful thing about AstroStays is that, today everybody has a smartphone, and all you need to do is just, download an app like Skyview or to just point it at the sky and look at, what the sky has to offer. But then can you actually, in addition to the modern science behind the skies, what if we also learn about and explore the heritage astronomy about it? And, Ladakh and Himalayas, they've been part of the Buddhist cosmology and the Silk Route, and they have such rich traditions and culture when it comes with respect to the skies. And I think in every culture, be it the Mayans or the Aborigines or the people in the Indus Valley, they've always looked up to skies to, for harvesting or for their daily chores. And the way we deconstructed astronomy to our team was to basically first look at the indigenous stories and the connections that they had to the sky, and then start linking it to the modern science. So when you go to an AstroStay, there's a sky map that is available with them, which gives them a glimpse of what is available in that particular month to see. So, you also have the expectations set right for the travelers. And if there is, some weather or an overcast that due to which the sessions cannot happen, there is also an alternate plans that there. So you see, one of our team members using Stellarium to see what's there in the sky that particular day. And some of the pictures of the astronomy sessions that are happening in the villages. And, this is how the homestay looks like, one of the things of astrotourism is that it actually necessitates overnight stays. And this one has been, set up on the banks of a very famous lake called Pangong, which we share with China. And people usually come for a day trip. They come there, look at the Pangong Lake, take pictures and go back. And now because Astro Stays have been set up, that has also necessitated them to kind of, book the homestays and start living in, which has started to bring additional revenue as well. So we call, the team running the Astro Stays as Astropreneurs. And this has been the impact so far. We have created 6 Astro Stays, trained 30 women, and around 3,200 of revenues was generated through Astro Stays. This includes both the revenue that was generated from the homestays as well as, the stargazing sessions that happen at night. And this was tested only during 4 to 5 months because, last year, because of pandemic, everything was shut down. So, we are starting to revive this again this year. And what happened in the last year when there were no tourists and there was no travel, the money and the revenue that was generated from these Astro Stays was starting to get pumped back into community development. So Ladakh is like a cold desert. And, through the money that was collected through Astro Stays, people started buying solar water heaters, washing hands and hygiene has become of the utmost importance. And, because it's a cold desert, infrastructure like this is really needed. And then also investing in greenhouses. So what's the way forward for us at Astro Stays? One is basically, we see a lot of potential in the model to be replicated in areas that have access to clear dark skies. So, we are trying to identify potential communities and geographies where, the Astro Stays can be set up. We are looking at national parks, where we can, tie up with the communities or the rangers to directly train them on astronomy and then, see how the local communities can benefit from that model. Also mapping basic community needs so that, it becomes a very, very sustainable destination. And also looking at, creating a working group, which basically bridges the gap that we have between tourism and astronomy. So thank you very much. I really hope you enjoyed the presentation and thank you.
Sonal, I think it's fair to say that we very much enjoyed the presentation. Thank you. Excellent. We might just take one, there's a few questions popping in for you, and there's some very nice comments as well in the chat box. So I'll just read a couple of the lovely comments as they pop in. You've inspiring, I think that's a great word for the work that you do. Excellent, thank you, fantastic work, really inspiring again. And this could be a model for how we implement our own ambassador program here. Thank you, Sonal. I'll just go to one question and then we might move on and save the others until we have a panel session at the end. So we have a question here. Even though Sonal mentioned that the villagers from Ladakh did not have advanced formal training, I imagine that they had much folklore and generations old knowledge of the skies to share. It's not really a question, it's a comment, but I loved seeing the wonder and joy on the faces of the night sky tourists within the video. I think that's a lovely summation of that video, and congratulations on that. And just one other comment here, Charles Smith says, as an electrical engineer here in Ireland, I would like to make any sharing opportunities directly with Indian or any other nationality engineers. So that's a nice one. Just see if there is a question that I can give you, because these are comments more than questions. Is there any emerging evidence that astrotourism generates a greater sense of community that sparks interest and momentum for other regenerative or climate-based projects? I don't know if you have any comment on.
So I think, like I said, one of the biggest assets of astrotourism is, the skies, which never need to be maintained or developed. So I would say that it really is one of the most sustainable form of tourism, and it doesn't leave a footprint anywhere. Of course, if somebody is traveling, there is, some carbon footprint. But I think if this model is replicated, then you don't really have to travel to Himalayas all the time to be part of the Astro Stays. But it is nature-based tourism, it is regenerative, and I would say one of the most authentic forms of sustainable tourism.
Yeah, Yeah, I'd agree, and it is something that you can't visit on a day trip. You have to stay overnight, and that's the point for our local providers here to take note of. It does encourage longer stays. Sonal, we will come back to you. Thank you so much. That was excellent, and we might just bring in our next speaker now.
Thank you so much, Georgia.
Thank you. So our next speaker is going to be Fionnán Nestor. Hi, Fionnán.
Hi.
Fionnán is the projects officer for Mayo on the Wild Atlantic Way with Fáilte Ireland. He's been heavily involved in a report from 29 commissioned by Fáilte Ireland called Maximising the Potential of Dark Sky Tourism in Ireland. He's also doing a lot of work on the visitor experience development plan for the Clúibé area, which includes a number of dark sky initiatives. So I think on that note, Fionnán, I'll let you tell us more, and thank you for joining us, and welcome.
Thanks, Georgia. So I might just share my screen, please. And can you see that screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me here to speak to you today about dark skies tourism and its potential here in Ireland, and more specifically along our beautiful Wild Atlantic Way on the rugged and remote west coast. So my name is Fionnán Nestor, and I'm a development officer with Fáilte Ireland. I'm based in Mayo and speaking to you today from my home in Belcarra. It's a lovely leafy village, about 30 minutes from our national park and Mayo Dark Sky Park. So I consider myself very lucky and privileged even to live so close to such an amazing asset. Today I'm going to talk to you about dark skies and its potential from a tourism perspective. As Georgia mentioned, in 2019 I was involved in a study Fáilte Ireland conducted which sought to understand how we could maximise its potential in terms of attracting visitors and increasing dwell time in the area and growing tourism revenue. So I'll draw on some of those insights from that study in my presentation, and I'll also mention some of the work that we're doing to help raise the profile of the Dark Sky Park in Mayo. Now, how do I move on? There we go. So first, just to introduce you to the agency that I work with. Fáilte Ireland is the national development agency for tourism in the Republic of Ireland. And we have three kind of broad areas of work. So we invest in tourism infrastructure in a number of ways. We have small and large capital grant programs, but we also work with some strategic partners like the local authorities and the National Parks and Wildlife Service on specific tourism related projects. We support the tourism industry as well in a number of ways, such as through the provision of research and insights and training and mentoring, as well as access to international buyers and markets. And we also promote Ireland as a holiday destination to people in Ireland, and we do that through traditional advertising campaigns. So those of you who are joining from Ireland, you'd be familiar with the Discover Ireland campaign. But we also bring in lots of international media into the country and tour operators as well on familiarization trips, in the hope that on their return to their own respective countries, they'll write about Ireland and what a great time they've had here, or they'll program Ireland to their customers if they're tour operators. So tourism in Ireland is so important. In 2019, it employed over 250,000 people here. It employs more people than education, construction, and agriculture combined. And its the role it plays in sustaining communities, particularly on the West Coast, is really, really important and should never be underestimated. So this map represents the proportion of businesses operating in tourism in each county in Ireland. And you can see that Mayo, which is the dark blue in the Midwest there, Donegal in the Northwest, and Kerry in the Southwest are the most heavily dependent on tourism. So nowhere is growth in tourism or decline in tourism felt more acutely than in these counties. Now, obviously, COVID-19 has written off a lot of 2020 and most of 2021, certainly from an international point of view. But if we look back at 2019, which is our last benchmarkable year, tourism was performing really well here. So it was a near record year with almost 10 million international visitors. That's a really big number for a country of our size. Our population is only about half that. Almost 11 million domestic trips were taken. The domestic market really did save a lot of businesses last year when we did open up after restrictions lifted. And in fact, Mayo had one of its strongest summers ever. And it's looking to another strong summer too, provided things go the way they're going in terms of reducing infection rates, etc. But obviously, even though we had a strong summer last year and we might have a good one this year, it wouldn't be enough to offset the big losses incurred by the industry. So hopefully we'll have a good summer and it'll be a welcome reprieve for the industry here. So international visitors, where do they go in Ireland? So there is a traditional tourist trail that the majority of visitors follow. So they'll arrive in through Dublin Airport and they'll go across to Galway in the west coast. They might do a day trip of Connemara and they'll head south to the Burren and the Cliffs of Moher and the Ring of Kerry and Cork. So there is a loop that they do, which broadly takes in the southern half of the country. And this is a bucket list trip for a lot of people, particularly Americans. And if they've been reading about the Cliffs of Moher or they've been reading about the Ring of Kerry or Connemara for 30 years, these are the places they'll want to go, even though some of these locations can be congested at times during the busy periods. And we have as equally as beautiful cliffs and coast and attractions and villages in the northern part of the country, and particularly north of Galway on the Wild Atlantic Way in places like Mayo. Now, just in case any of you on the call are not familiar with the Wild Atlantic Way, I'm essentially talking about the west coast of Ireland. So the Wild Atlantic Way is essentially it's a destination brand that Fáilte Ireland developed back in 2014 to kind of present the west coast as a coherent and compelling place to visit. And it's been really successful in terms of raising the profile of the region and dispersing visitors and spend more evenly about it as it encourages exploration of the route. So look, that's the background, where we are at in terms of tourism in Ireland currently, or at least where we were at in 2019 and where hopefully we'll get back to in the next number of years. But now let's take a look at where Dark Skies comes in terms of sustaining the successes we were seeing up until 2019 and helping in the recovery as we emerge from the pandemic. So what is Dark Skies Tourism? Dark Skies Tourism is a part of astrotourism, astronomy tourism, and has strong affinities with experiential tourism, adventure tourism, cultural and sustainable tourism. It's focused on the appreciation and understanding of the night sky and is delivered through a wide variety of activities. And we'll look at some of those a little bit later on. Now, internationally, interest in this area has really been growing over the last number of years, fueled in part by lots of media coverage and public interest in major events like the solar eclipse back in 2017, but also due to the popularity of shows like the BBC's Wonders of the Solar System series with Brian Cox, or Through the Wormhole series with Morgan Freeman, or Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson. And then you have the NASA's Perseverance rover landing on Mars a few weeks ago, and all the cool stuff that Elon Musk is doing at SpaceX. There's a lot of stuff going on in this space, and it is growing international interest. Now, obviously, for the vast majority of people, space travel isn't a personal reality, but astrotourism, dark skies tourism, observatory and planetarium visits, and similar experiences bring the realities of the universe within reach, and that is really compelling as a prospect for a lot of people. So dark sky areas are characterized by the absence of light pollution and by the quality of the darkness at night, as demonstrated, as you can see in this image here, and by the focused efforts of the local community to restrict artificial lighting in order to preserve this very delicate and beautiful asset. So according to research by the Light Pollution Science and Technology Institute, 80% of Earth's landmass suffers from light pollution, while for 99% of people in Europe and the USA, the night sky is obscured by artificial lighting. So dark skies are an incredibly rare sight for the majority of people on this planet, and as such, experiencing the dark skies as we have them here in Mayo and at the Mayo Dark Sky Park can be an incredibly powerful and meaningful experience, particularly if it's a guided experience. As while the night skies are undeniably beautiful, mesmerizingly so, for most people, they do need to be interpreted to be fully experienced. So where can we find dark sky tourism internationally? So we find them in countries that have the basic raw ingredients: regular clear skies, a focal point for tourism around which tour operators can develop packages, things like observatories or planetariums. You have a scientific community, and you have an engaged local community and tourism industry. Places like Chile, New Zealand, and La Palma in the Canaries. And the types of activities that you could expect to find in these locations might include, like I mentioned, observatory and planetarium tours and talks, nighttime stargazing, either as part of a group or self-guided using apps or pre-designated trails or printed materials, nighttime sea kayaking, star parties, dark sky festivals, astrophotography courses, seminars, workshops, dark sky friendly accommodation, whether that's camping out in the wilderness, or hotels with telescopes, or even bed and breakfasts who provide their guests with deck chairs and blankets and a pair of binoculars to look at the moon. It can be very simple. So around the world today, the breadth of dark sky experiences is truly immense. If you just take a look at this screen grab from Airbnb experiences, there's everything here from astrophotography and stargazing to UFO viewing, star parties, and an Earth goddess hike. Like, there's really no limits to the innovation and imagination in terms of dark skies experiences that are out there. So as you can see, dark skies tourism is not just confined to Chile, New Zealand and the Canaries. There are many other locations tapping into it too, from Namibia and the USA to Northern Europe and even our closest neighbour in the UK. Now, the UK has similar product and environment to Ireland, so it's an important one for us to look at. But they are far more advanced in terms of, sectoral and regional activity and buy-in. It has 11 IDA designated sites, parks, reserves, and even 3 designated communities, mainly located in peripheral regions, which is normally the case. And in addition, they have over 150 designated dark sky discovery sites, and places like Kielder Observatory would be hugely well known and would attract lots of visitors, international visitors every year. Now, Ireland, on the other hand, is still at a relatively embryonic stage of development in terms of realising the potential of dark skies as a tourism asset. Like in Ireland, we are extremely lucky that we have 2 really beautiful dark sky accredited areas in Mayo Dark Sky Park and in the Kerry International Dark Sky Reserve. And this is a light map of Ireland, and you can see that the only 2 dark sky accredited areas currently in Ireland are located in the western fringes over on the Wild Atlantic Way and in areas with minimal or no light pollution. I should also point out that our host today, Georgia, was instrumental in Mayo securing its gold tier accreditation. So we do have a couple of operators working in the space as well. So the likes of Terra Firma, they're also based here in Mayo. They offer a range of guided dark sky experiences, which I've had the pleasure of joining. They've been groups out into Mayo Dark Sky Park, which I'm sure most of you know is also the location of Wild Nathan National Park. And using laser pointers, they help bring the night sky to life for visitors. And then when it gets too chilly, they can pop inside into the bothy that Georgia showed you a picture of earlier for a hot whiskey and a couple of stories from a storyteller, someone who can explore the local heritage and folklore of the area in a really interesting and accessible way. It's brilliant. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience. And we don't have enough of them yet in Ireland. So who is it attracting? Who are the people engaging in dark skies tourism? So the largest cohort are general mainstream tourists. Now, I'm not saying that they're traveling to Ireland specifically to engage in dark skies. They're not. They're probably here on holidays already. They might have a general interest in astronomy or science or nature and are looking for something fun, a learning experience and a nighttime experience. And remember, in Ireland, we don't have a huge amount of nighttime experiences that don't involve alcohol. So this is a welcome addition to our nighttime economy. And dark sky experiences will take people off the beaten track into rural and remote locations. And this can be really rewarding for any visitor, regardless of what their specific interests are. Now, it's important to note also that coming out of this pandemic, and I know this was mentioned earlier, there has never been more interest in the outdoors, clean air, pristine environments, and getting away from the crowds. And this does present a lot of potential for dark skies. Now, other cohorts of people interested in dark skies include students who might be doing research, or amateur astronomers, or photographers, or event-specific visitors like those traveling to be part of the Mayo Dark Sky Festival, which has been growing year on year every year. It was held virtually last year, but in 2019 it had huge numbers, and the caliber of its speakers is really fantastic over the last number of years. Now, another important note actually is from a tourism perspective, the majority of these people who are engaging with dark sky experiences are doing so in the off-peak season, so October to March. And will be congregating predominantly in IDA designated sites, which by their very nature are located in rural communities that may not otherwise experience a huge throughput of tourist visitors. So it does tick a lot of boxes for Fáilte Ireland, it's the agency I work for, in terms of regionality, so dispersal of visitors out into the regions, and seasonality, extending that season and kind of lessening the pressure during the summertime in kind of our key destinations. So what is the potential then? So if we develop and pursue the Dark Skies proposition in Ireland, what will it deliver in terms of visitor numbers and revenue? So it is hard to say, but we can give it a stab. So we know that in the Canaries, for example, about 200,000 people, 4% of the market, engage with dark sky activities there. Now, they don't travel there specifically to do so. Many of them will be there on holidays anyway. In the UK, they've over 250 astronomy clubs, and they've 13,000 members. The Kielder Observatory, like I mentioned, they attract almost 25,000 visitors a year. They have loads of events all happening around the country, all throughout the dark sky season, if you like, anything up to 1,300 people. And Irish events, there are a number of them, like the Mayo Dark Sky Festival, and their numbers are increasing every year, but we're kind of at a lower level still. But Astronomy Ireland does claim to have 13,000 members, I think, and having been at some of their lectures, there are pains to point out that per head of population, it's one of the largest astronomy clubs in the world, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But what can we say with certainty? So we know that it's appealing to mainstream visitors who are already in an area because it's a memorable experience and it's nighttime and it's braggable and it's cool. But it is relatively niche still. But niche can mean a lot to small businesses in rural communities. If 3% of visitors to Mayo currently visited the areas around the Dark Sky Park to participate in dark sky activities and events, that would equate to 25,000 people and more than 65,000 people in Kerry. And they are significant numbers. Now, finally, where are the opportunities for us here on the West Coast? So the dark skies are an excellent fit with the Wild Atlantic Way in terms of showcasing the natural environment, minimal light pollution. We have 2 designated sites on the Wild Atlantic Way. As Georgia mentioned, the dark skies have been identified as catalyst projects, so priority projects, developmental projects for us in both Mayo and Kerry as part of destination development plans that we are working on with a number of public body partners like the National Parks and Wildlife Service and the local authorities. We have some accommodation providers offering packages. We have strong groups of cross-sectoral volunteers. Volunteers are crucial, and they have been throughout the development of the dark skies in Ireland, and they will continue to be hugely important in making them a success. We have very active astronomy groups. We have infrastructure that can be adapted to dark skies, whether they be beaches. We have beautiful, stretching, deserted blue flag beaches all along our west coast, perfect for observing the night skies. And we have heritage sites dotted along these remote locations also, which act as beautiful frames to the night sky. Georgia took me on a tour of Burshule Abbey outside of Newport once, and framed by the walls of the Abbey. It was a wonderful experience looking up at the night skies. We have discovery points as part of the Wild Atlantic Way and that proposition, 180 of them around the Wild Atlantic Way, and most of them in rural locations looking out over the ocean. And of course, we have our national parks, so Glenveigh, Wild Nathan, the Burren, and Killarney National Park. And we have also, which is really important, the support of public bodies, like I mentioned, like the County Council and Fáilte Ireland and the National Parks and Wildlife Service. And in fact, those 3 bodies are currently working together on an exciting project to develop an observatory and planetarium at Wild Nathan National Park. So they've been allocated funding under the RRDF to kind of look at the design of these 2 installations. There's a working group established, and they've put a number of reports have been commissioned, and they've engaged with an architect. So that's progressing. And the aspiration, I suppose, will be in due course to be in a position to apply for Category 1 funding to kind of realize those 2 projects. Now, while the planetarium and observatory will play a huge role in raising the profile of the area and making the dark skies more accessible and appealing to a wider cohort of potential visitors, the planetarium will also provide a year-round all-weather facility, which is important in a place like this. But the key to success, I think, will be the participation and support of local tourism businesses and communities buying into the Dark Skies proposition through the provision of dark sky-friendly accommodation or promoting the dark skies on their websites, ambassador programs, walks and talks, festivals and events, guided experiences, full moon yoga, midnight feasts under the stars. I mean, like I said, there's no end to the type of innovation and imagination you can bring to it. Having a range of experiences on offer to cater for the diverse needs and motivations of visitors will be really important, as will having an informed and supportive industry, one which leaves visitors with a sense of not just having visited a dark sky site, but rather having experienced a dark sky destination. So at that, I'm going to hand you back to Georgia, and obviously happy to take any questions at the end.
Finan, thank you. Thank you so much. I hate to use a pun, but I think it's fair to say the future is bright for Dark Skies, listening to all that. Some very exciting things happening for everyone involved. And the more we can get, as you say, local support and businesses involved, I think the more sustainable it will be in the longer term. Finan, I'm just going to put one question to you, and then I will be handing over to Margaret Flaherty. So just one that came in from Katrina. She says, and you've kind of touched on this already, but she said, can you say something about the ways Fáilte Ireland intends encouraging many of the tourist businesses, B&Bs, etc., to use dark sky friendly lighting? Many of the providers, unbeknownst to themselves, are actually contributing to light pollution. They need information, encouragement, and ideas on how to make changes, and still providing them with lighting that links to their insurance, otherwise keeping outdoor lighting which is too bright.
Yeah, that's a good point. But we in the two areas around our existing dark sky parks, we have development plans in place which prioritize work around dark skies and the protection of dark skies as an asset in these areas. And we will be, so if you take, for example, in Clúibé, that plan is to be published in the next month or two, at which point we'll be putting together a kind of a cross-sectoral implementation team who will be tasked with progressing that plan. And there's hundreds of actions in there. And around the dark skies, they've been drawn from that 2019 report that I mentioned earlier. So that implementation team will be central to kind of advancing the vision for dark skies in this area. So there will be a full action plan in place and engaging with local industries, the local tourism businesses. I suppose the first step is informing them of the potential and how important it is to protect that asset for us. And that's part of our job.
Yeah, no, I hear. And if I can just plug Dark Sky Ireland's event on Monday night at 7 o'clock is directed at those that want to work on light pollution and making changes like what Katrina is proposing to businesses. So we welcome their involvement as to reduce light pollution. Finan, thank you very much. We will be coming back to you, and there's some more questions for you, so you're not off the hook yet, but thank you very much. So I'm now going to hand over the hosting to my colleague Margaret Flaherty. Mags is the supervisor guide with both Connemara National Park and Nathan Ballycroy National Park, which of course is Mayo International Dark Sky Park. So thanks, Mags, and I will hand over to you.
Thanks, Georgia. So I have the pleasure of welcoming our next speaker, who is Sujay, to the webinar today. So Sujay is an amateur astronomer from India, but he's based in Paris at the moment. And Sujay has already visited us here in Mayo during our Dark Sky Festival in 2019, which was followed by an international symposium for the protection of the night sky. So that was our last big in-person event that we had here in Mayo for our dark skies. And Sujay has been doing really great work raising awareness on light pollution. So as well as developing the Meet the Stargazers mobile app, which he's going to be talking about today, he also hosts a podcast talking all things dark skies, including observation, astrophotography, and astrotourism. So without saying too much more, I will let Sujay take it from here. So welcome back to Mayo, Sujay, although virtually this time.
Thanks for the lovely introduction, Margaret. I hope all of you can see my screen.
It's your Word document.
I think it should be fine this time.
Yeah, we can see that now, Sujay.
So this app was born out of a personal need. I live in Paris, a very light polluted city, and consequently I was struggling to find good places to observe the night sky. And that is when I decided to curate the best places to observe the night sky, characterize them, and build a tool that could be useful to other amateur astronomers in the same situation. When I started to study characterizing stargazing locations, I realized that the quality of night sky is not the only parameter when we consider locations for stargazing. The distance and travel time is one of the most important parameters. In astronomy circles, it is well known that the best telescope is not the biggest one, but the one that you use most often. It's my personal conviction that the same analogy applies to stargazing locations. The best stargazing locations are not necessarily the darkest ones, but the ones that you can access and visit most often. In Meet Stargazers, I use the Google distance matrix algorithm that calculates the distance and travel time for each stargazing location automatically. The quality of night sky is provided through the bottle scale. And you can also directly launch your driving itinerary to your stargazing location using Google Maps and Waze. The quality of night sky will also dictate the kind of observation you will be able to do from a given location. If you are close to or in a city, you're likely going to do planetary and lunar observation. If you are far from a city, you're likely going to do deep sky observation, but also planetary and lunar observation. Clearance of the horizon is important for certain observations, like planets. If you live in the northern hemisphere, most of the planets will be visible along the southern horizon. And inversely, if you live in the southern hemisphere, most of the planets will generally be visible on the northern horizon. So having a clear horizon is an additional asset for any stargazing location. Most amateur astronomers travel to their locations by car with their telescopes and equipment, which is why accessibility and possibility to park are important criteria. Having electric power supply at the observing site can be useful, especially for those with motorized telescopes and for astrophotographers to charge their equipment. Weather conditions, for obvious reasons, and I have implemented a partnership with Meteo Blue, which is a global benchmark in precision weather data. And this provides me this gives me the possibility to provide high quality weather forecast directly within the app for each stargazing location. I haven't listed the lunar phase. Within the mobile app, Meet Stargazers mobile app, you will also find the lunar ephemerides for a complete month. Comfort. This is one of the parameters that I wasn't providing an answer to in the beginning when I started this project. Comfort makes the experience of stargazing an agreeable one, an enjoyable one. And this is where dark sky friendly B&Bs come into the picture. And I opened up the astrotourism dimension of to Meet Stargazers. What kind of places would you find on the Meet Stargazers mobile app? Namely, outdoor locations, observatories, planetariums, astronomy-themed bars, dark sky-friendly B&Bs, and hotels. How do I find these locations, you may ask? Well, it's essentially a process of curation. I ask the guests on my podcast for interesting stargazing locations that they would recommend. I discuss the same topic in conferences like this one, astronomy festivals, star parties, and the like. Users may also suggest locations, and especially for dark sky friendly B&Bs and hotels, I'm inclined to take informal recommendations from dark sky parks and reserves. Why is that so? Well, it gives me the possibility to ensure a semblance of quality control on the kind of dark sky B&Bs that I'm adding to the map. But this is not a strict rule. I also add dark sky friendly B&Bs and hotels that are outside of the perimeters of dark sky parks and reserves. A few examples. These are just examples for illustration. Dark sky friendly B&Bs. Ma Petite Cabane en Lozère is a dark sky friendly B&B in the Seven National Park, which was accredited as a dark sky reserve by the IDA in 2018. And the proprietor has installed glass pyramids for guests to sleep under the stars. L'Étoile du Berger is also located in the Seven National Park, and the proprietor has built a concrete platform for guests to set up their telescopes. The proprietor already receives astronomy clubs from Northern Europe in her dark sky friendly B&B. We also have bed-end telescopes on Meet Stargazers. And to illustrate the concept, I've taken two examples. There are many others. Aquarelia Observatory is situated in the south of France, a beautiful B&B, but it also has an observatory in the property. Yannick and Michel de Coninck run this B&B, and Michel has been an amateur astronomer since more than 30 years. He has contributed observations to scientific projects in astronomy. And if you choose the right package, you can observe the night sky with Michel and his equipment. Le Refuge aux Étoiles in the southwest of France offers a stargazing experience with their own observatory and a beautiful B&B. Observatories do outstanding work of simplifying the access to astronomy for beginners. I've taken two examples: Lowell Observatory just outside Flagstaff in Arizona, and Kilo Observatory in the UK. Planetariums provide an unrivaled educational experience in astronomy, and they are the only non-observing sites that you will find on Meet Stargazers. The rest are all observing sites. I've taken two for example: Flandreau Science Center and Planetarium in Tucson, Arizona, and SciTech in Perth, Western Australia. We also have astronomy-themed bars, and I had the fortune to visit one of them, which is called Sky Bar in Tucson, Arizona. The staff of the bar sets up telescopes. You can observe the night sky with their telescopes and go back to sipping your cocktail. Certainly very cool. Twice Brewed in the UK, it was already mentioned in the earlier presentation. And there's also the Observatory in Bend, Oregon, run by Worthy Brewing, which offers a similar stargazing experience. Hotels have also identified astronomy as an attractive opportunity. By that, I mean hotels located in areas with less light pollution. Two of these examples are the 3100 Kulm Hotel in Gornegrat in Switzerland and the Sossusvlei Desert Lodge in Namibia. The Sossusvlei Desert Lodge is located just outside the Namibrand Nature Reserve, which is an IDA accredited dark sky reserve in Namibia. I also realized while building this app that a mobile app will not be able to provide all the information about astronomy, nightscape astrophotography, and astrotourism, which is when I decided to create a podcast. And I envision it as a library of resources that you could call upon as a beginner to start your journey in astronomy. Meet Stargazers, the Meet Stargazers podcast will serve you best if you're a beginner in astronomy. I've already created 4 podcast episodes to help you get started in nightscape astrophotography. And I strongly recommend you to start with my podcast if you're beginning in nightscape astrophotography. On the podcasts, I also have interviews with relation to opportunities for nightscape astrophotography and stargazing in dark sky parks. To the right, you'll find an example of, it's an extract of the interview I had with Georgia of the opportunities for stargazing and nightscape astrophotography in Mayo Dark Sky Park. This includes nocturnal nature trails, astronomy clubs, night sky experiences like the magical Great Basin Star Train in northern Nevada, stargazing tours like those offered by Terra Firma in Ireland, and the like. So you can go to find the download links for the mobile app on meetstargazers.com. Both platforms are supported. If you're on Android, there are a few rare Android devices where you will have to launch the app twice for this geolocation to function, but you should have no problem. The podcast website is shown on the screen. If you want to suggest adding a stargazing location, a B&B, or an observatory, please reach out to me at the email address contact@darkskyMap.com. I share the progress of my project on social media handles. The social media handle is Meet Stargazers on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, CJ. That was a really interesting presentation. I think there's a lot of food for thought for accommodation providers and experience providers out there, you know, even here in Mayo. So thank you so much for sharing that. We'll take one question, and I've just been keeping an eye on the Q&A, and the one question I'll ask is from Fiona, and she would like to know how you validate the recommendations you receive.
Well, it's the 8 to 9 criteria that I elucidated at the beginning of the presentation. It's the quality of night sky. I also have a light pollution map in the mobile app that I use to evaluate the quality of night sky you would expect, the clearance of the horizon, space to park, and so on. It takes time. Each location is a subject of study, and I try my best to evaluate the location before adding it to the map. I do delete locations. I do receive suggestions which I don't approve of, and in which case I do delete them. It has happened. In fact, it happens at least once a week. So.
Okay, so there's quality control there for sure. And just a comment that came in from Jed, he said, it's really nice to see the evolution of your app. And it's nice to see that the bothy in the Mayo Dark Sky Park has been included. So Mayo is appearing on your app. So that's really, really great to hear that.
It's the fruit of my visit in 2019, November 2019. And okay. I was privileged to participate in that symposium. Thank you.
And we were privileged to have you. Thank you so much, CJ. We'll come back at the end if there are any more questions for when we're in the panel. So I'll move on to Canada next. So from France across the Atlantic Ocean to Canada we go. And before I welcome David, I just want to, David works with Parks Canada. So I just want to let the audience know a little about the special relationship that the National Parks and Wildlife Service here in Ireland have with Parks Canada, our equivalent there in Canada. So for those of you that don't know, in 2019, we signed a twinning agreement where Connemara National Park was twinned with Terra Nova National Park. And in addition to the park, Signal Hill National Historic Site in St. John's was also twinned with the Marconi site at Derrygimla outside Clifton in County Galway. And this arrangement, we're very excited about it because it's not just from the National Parks perspective, but as Irish people reaffirming our cultural links to Canada and you know, the connections that we have between our two countries. And we have mutual goals in the areas of conservation and history, both our organizations. And we hope that this arrangement will promote cooperation and knowledge exchanges for the mutual benefit of our national parks and historic sites. And I guess today is an example of that, you know, those mutual benefits and sharing knowledge and information and experiences. And we also have an important role in habitat protection, conservation of our wildlife, and also conserving the cultural heritage of both our countries. So I think it's a really, really great partnership that we're having, and it's really nice to see it evolving and, you know, us taking part in events like this. So we're very excited to have David from Parks Canada, as I said, in the last of our talks today, but by no means the least. And David works as a visitor experience product development officer with Terra Nova National Park. And he has been described as a dark sky champion. And he has firsthand experience in both the establishment and the maintenance of the Dark Sky Preserve at Terra Nova, which you will be talking about today. And although he admits that it's been a steep learning curve for him, he says he's received great guidance from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. And he is now happy to declare that he's completely in the dark. So without further ado, I will let David take over from here. So you're very welcome, David. David, you're on mute there.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can, yeah.
Thanks so much, Margaret and Georgia, for giving me the opportunity to speak at this symposium. You know, our partnership, like you said, started 3 years ago, and we're both looking into protecting the night sky. So, and as you'll see from the slides here, how important it is preserving the night sky in these locations. And we have so much in common: our coastline, our countryside, and kind of our geography as well. So I'm going to pull up my presentation, and hopefully that goes smoothly right here. Okay, just a little bit about Terra Nova National Park. We are located in Eastern Canada. And
sorry, David, your yes. Presentation isn't showing there.
Okay. Okay, let's try this. And there we go. How about that? Good there now?
Yeah, if you can you put it on to presentation mode?
Sure, yeah.
Perfect.
So Terra Nova National Park, just a little background for some of you who are not aware of where we are geographically. We're located on the east coast of the island portion of the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. We have rugged cliffs, sheltered inlets. It's a coastal region with rolling forested hills, bogs, ponds of the inland. We have long fjords that reach deep into the boreal forest. So we have a northern forest here which offers boaters, kayakers, and hikers sheltered exploration and coastal backcountry camping. Whales and icebergs are common along the park's coastline in the summer, and we're starting to see the migration of icebergs down our coastline now. Not quite down as far as Terranova National Park. If you go into the interior of the park, excuse me. This is live. If you go to the interior of the park, you will see trails that lead to secluded ponds, lakes, and look-offs. And our dark skies offer unimpeded night sky viewing. So Terranova National Park is a part of a system of parks administered by Parks Canada. And as you can see here, Canada has, I think right now we have 48 parks and preserves administered by Parks Canada. Terranova National Park is way out here in the far east. And our most western park we have is Kluane over here in northern British Columbia. Just to give you an idea of the scale of Canada we're looking at here, that's a distance of 5,200 kilometers across there. Are you guys hearing me there now?
We're hearing you, yep.
Okay, good. And just to give you a context here of the North Atlantic, we are only 3,100 kilometers from Connemara National Park. And I think it was about 5 years ago, my wife and I took a tour of Ireland, and we picked up our plane in St. John's, and there was a little tailwind, and 3.5 hours later, we were in Dublin. It's amazing, really. You can see on the night sky globe map of the world right here, the dark area that we are in, Terranova National Park. You can see this is snow up here in northern Labrador. The island of Newfoundland is barely visible on this night sky globe map. This little speck you see right here is our capital city, St. John's. It's got a population of roughly 130,000 people. So that's our urban area right there. And over here you can see Ireland, and as you can see, the west coast of Ireland is pretty dark. So we're looking at a little tighter shot now of the island portion of Newfoundland and Labrador. We are on the island portion. This is Bonavista Bay leading in right here. Terranova National Park is in this region right here. You can see a slightly different color green in here. So the park covers roughly 403 square kilometers. The island of Newfoundland was occupied or settled by indigenous people going back as far as 6,000 years ago. But first European settlers started settling in this part of the world right here at Bonavista back in about 1497. His name was, he was Italian, Giovanni Caboto. But the English called him John Cabot. So that was where he first landed, right here on Cape Bonavista. So these little light spots you're seeing all around are spots of light in the area. I'm currently presenting from my home, which is right here in Glovertown, which is just outside the boundary of the park. And I was very fortunate to grow up in a relatively dark area, and almost took for granted the quality of the night sky. And a lot of us have cottages out on the coast and even some of the islands in the area, and we would spend our time lying back and looking up at the stars in the sky. So back in 2018, we took a turn for the dark side. Under the direction and guidance of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, we received the designation as a dark sky preserve. That was in 2018. I think at the time we were the 13th in our system of parks to receive that designation. The first one going back, I think, was in 2004. So it's very relatively recent for us, but we've done a lot of work in a very short time to ensure that we are preserving the night sky and correcting some of the offending lights that we had in Terranova National Park. This is a great diagram that I pulled off the IDA site a couple of years ago, and it clearly illustrates the ways that Terranova National Park is reducing light pollution in the park. And some of you are probably looking at light considerations for the first time if you're in the tourism industry. Some of the most offensive lights would be lights over here without any shielding at all. You can see the light dispersion is in all directions. A better version of this would be this particular shield right here, which directs light downward. An improvement on that would be the color temperature. So we would like to keep the color temperature or the kelvins of the light somewhere down around 27 or even 2200. An improvement on that, which we are discovering right now in our light abatement, is to try to get the intensity of the lighting down. So you can see the color is still yellow here, but we want to bring the intensity down, which is often referred to as lux. So the lux is the intensity of light which actually hits the ground right here. And the lumens is the intensity of light that actually comes from the particular light fixture right here. One important consideration we are looking into now is setting timers on a lot of our lights. Most of the buildings that we use and occupy in the park, including our administration building, should not have any light a half an hour at the end of the workday. So we are putting timers now in all of our lights in our facilities. So one of the biggest considerations that we had when doing light abatement in Terranova National Park was first of all, the question was, do we need light at all in certain locations? And you do sometimes for, traversing the land, the uneven land underneath. The second question is, where does the light need to go? So this bollard right here on the left is in a very low position. It's only a couple feet on the ground. The type of light inside can be changed by hand. So you can reach in, it's just a normal, I think it's called an A19 socket, a normal light socket. And we can always lower the intensity of that light by changing the light bulb inside. Shielding lights, this was a product that I developed. I did a prototype from cardboard, and we had a number of offending wall packs on our buildings that was basically projecting light outward. And we thought with some proper shielding, we could direct the light downward. So we did up a cardboard template and we sent it to a local manufacturer. And I think these are made in galvanized steel right here, and they easily fix to the side of some of these wall packs, these offending lights, as we call them. This is a simple before and after. A lot of the lights when these facilities were built here in Terranova National Park were this pill shape. And as you know, most of that light's projected outward, projected toward you as you approach. You lose a lot of your night vision. A big change when we installed these little wedges here. These are on photocells, so they come on in the dark, and the light is directed downward. We source these out online. These fixtures are about $70 each Canadian and work quite well. And it's a different look and a different feel to the lighting in the park now. And it's directed to where we need it. I'm sure there aren't too many facilities in the world that haven't used these over the years. These are floodlights, and the word suggests that the light is flooded. Light is going everywhere, and it's lighting up your face as you approach these buildings, and not necessarily lighting the areas that need to be lit. This is a very simple fixture that we've just purchased. I think 50 of these, and we're going to install these on some of our facilities that need light. For example, our washrooms facilities in the campground need to be seen at night, but this particular fixture allows us to remove the light bulb inside and control the intensity of the light bulb. So we'll be installing probably a 2200 Kelvin light inside, which is pretty much an amber light. And if we find that that's too bright, we can always switch it out and try a different light fixture in there. Night sky experiences at Terranova National Park. So I'm just going to talk briefly about night sky viewing, diversified camping and programs and events. And these presentations I've seen this morning about, astrotourism, my head was spinning with ideas and that. And we are basically just starting to grow our astrotourism offer here in Terra Nova National Park, and we currently don't have a grasp on the numbers of people that come for astrotourism, but anecdotally we are seeing a lot of uptake and a lot of imagery showing up online from some of these locations that we're starting to promote here in the park. This is a location that's getting heavily photographed these days. This was a decommissioned fire tower in Terra Nova National Park up on Ochre Hill. It's about 212 meters above sea level. It gives the viewer an unimpeded view, basically, of the night sky. You can see we're looking into the Milky Way right here. We're starting to see this show up in a lot of pictures in the area. And even though this is not an observatory as such, it's still getting used for night sky photography. And near the base of this here is another viewing platform that gets used heavily. And the nice thing about these locations, they're accessible by vehicle. There's a parking lot just near the base of this here. So within 2 minutes, you can have your equipment set up and have an unimpeded view of the night sky. You do see distant glow of communities off in the distance, but Terra Nova National Park is 403 square kilometers, and for the most part is light free. So it's not hard to find a nice view of the night sky. Sandy Pond is a great location for our community outreach astronomy. You don't see the pond in this picture. This is actually the parking lot. But what this area allows us to do is to set up equipment. Again, it's got a good, slightly impeded view right here with the trees. But if you take the boardwalk out to the pond, it opens up. You're seeing the pond, the stars at night, even the reflection of the stars in the pond. There are no artificial lights at all in this area. And this was a picture again that we found online, this one here. One of the, probably a member of the Royal Astronomical Society, came out from St. John's, and this was a night that they'd spent up there taking pictures of the night sky. So this is only 8.5 kilometers from our main campground in Newman Sound. So it's an easily accessible site. Some of the diversified lodging places that we have in Terra Nova National Park include the Authentic. And the Authentic is kind of it's a cross between a tent and a cabin. And there's been a big uptake for these facilities in the park. They get used quite a bit. And it's kind of got a rustic feel. And the people and the young families that use these facilities tend to spend a lot of time outdoors and not inside. So it lends itself well to hanging out outside and looking at the night sky. This one in particular has received a lot of attention. It's called the Oasis. It's in, as you can see, it's in the shape of a water droplet. It's designed by a company in France. You've probably seen some of these in places in Europe. A big draw right now for us. There's a sofa bed inside on the main level and a hammock loft above. So you got see-through panels in the roof and side panels that you can see the stars at night. So we anticipate this is something that we will continue to encourage for night sky viewing, and we would like to see more of these. And I think there's a lot of room for growth. You can even tell how recent this has been put in place by the ground around it there. But we're looking toward the south there now in that picture, so we got a good southern exposure, good southern sky behind us there. Another diversified camping option that we're just starting to tap into this. This is a location out on the coast of Terra Nova National Park, because we are a park that's both coastal and inland. So this would be more of a coastal experience. It's in Newman Sound, which is a fjord leading into the park. This is Mention Cove, and this is a backcountry camping site. And you can see we have a yurt down there. And this gentleman that was staying in the yurt just walked around the other side of the cove and got a nice picture of the Milky Way. Other camping experiences, we have some backcountry camping locations. I think we have 7 in total right now where you can go and set up your tent on a wooden tent pad and have unimpeded views of the night sky. Again, this is another one taken out on the coast in Terranova National Park. So we see a lot of growth and a potential growth in night sky, astronomy related lodging in the park. And this is an area that we can tap into, and we're starting to see more and more of an uptake for that. People are we do have a core visitation to the park that comes for, their RV camping, but we're starting to see more of an uptake for these backcountry experiences where they can see the night sky. Over on the right-hand side here now on the screen, this is a group tenting area in another campsite that we have called Maladi Head. And this is where you can set up your groups. And this is actually this picture was taken during a star party night. This one was probably in August. And the Royal Astronomical Society's their equipment set up in the area. This was actually a part of an animated a video here, but this is just a still shot extracted from that one. So we were unable to get it to work there. So sorry about that. Education. So we do have a ways to go with our education. A lot of our repeat campers have been coming to the park for a number of years. We have some elderly campers, and when they set up shop or set up their RVs, they like to let people know that they're in. And as you can see right here, this particular camper is lit up heavily. And you see these lights along here. And in the distance, I don't know if you can see, these are palm trees. And these trees are lit up at night. So we are doing quite a bit now to, improve communication with our campers. Or new signage going in this year. We've kind of been away from the park now for a couple of years due to COVID, but we've been doing work behind the scenes to see that we get the word out. And we also bring in the Royal Astronomical Society to do presentations to our campers in the park. Not all campsites look like this. These are exceptions in the park. This is in Newman Sound Campground, and this is an image that was sent to me by a member of the Royal Astronomical Society, and this is something that IDA, the International Dark Sky Association, is using. And it's a great slogan, and I think we would like to adopt and use it in some of our locations in the park to remind campers to light your sight and not the night. So as you can see, even though we've got a pretty good image here of the night sky, this is an adjacent campsite here which had its lights on all night long. So I think with some gentle encouragement, I think we can remove some of these lights or encourage people to have more a light ethic. So our educational programming. So this gentleman here has been a partner. He's guided us through this process. His name is David Newberry. He's a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. And David has been a camper in the park for quite a few years now. And he approached us back in 2015 to consider getting this dark sky certification. So David has helped us with the process. It was a fairly lengthy process, doing an inventory of every single external light in the park and writing up an abatement program for offending lights, what we would do with these lights. We had to take light measurements, sky quality measurements of various locations throughout Terranova National Park to determine adequate places for night sky viewing. So every year, Dave and his team from the Royal Astronomical Society, they come out from St. John's to deliver programming to us, staff, and to the visiting public. So down here in the lower left, you can see this is a solar viewer. Up here, you can see this young gentleman is looking through a solar lens right here. Notice the shirt? And this is another telescope. And this is some, in one of our facilities here now, inside our activity center right here, we have a mural on the wall with constellations, which we use in our programming. We're actually looking at an image here of our night sky celebration event. So we hold this in Newman Sound Campground. This is our activity center. The last time we could do this pre-COVID was back in 2019. So again, the members of the Royal Astronomical Society, they come out and they deliver programming in this facility as a part of the night sky celebration. So it could be, you know, how to identify constellations and stars in the night sky. It could be how to use a camera for night sky photography, astrophotography. There's arts and crafts that are sky themed going on there in the background. And then as it gets darker, we take people outside this facility, or we bring them to the Sandy Pond facility and we set up there for the rest of the evening. So this has grown. We've only done it a couple of times now. I think we had 160 show up at our last stargazing event at Sandy Pond. So it's quickly getting the uptake. One of our staff, Kathy Sweetapple, very gifted artist. She's been dabbling and working on this new character. His name is Alan, Artificial Light at Night. So Alan is it's going to be our Dark Defender. So we're in the process of starting a Dark Defender club for the youth that visit Terra Nova National Park. And if you can have a quick look at the storyline right here, Elan in this first one is saying, "I make it glow wherever I go." And the owl is saying, "Oh, what is that light? I need the dark to hunt." And the mouse is saying, "I see you." And these are our puffins right here, and they're being misguided, of course, by the artificial light over here. They're normally guided by the moon and the stars. And in this last bit of storyline right here, you can see how this person is confused as to where to go because of the amount of light pollution that's in the area. So this is a great start that we have. It's been shown to members of the Royal Astronomical Society, and they are all on board. And I dare say, once the world uprights itself, after we get back to working in the facilities again, this will be a program that we will start in the park. Some other interpretive programs: the Family Night Hike. We have junior naturalist programs dedicated to wildlife at night. One is called Wild Nightlife, and the other the Dark Side of Junior Naturalist programs. We have a preschool one, Twinkle Twinkle. And over here, this has been a big hit, and I think one of my colleagues, Yolanda Collins and Karen Wolfrey, they brought this over to Connemara when they were over in 2019. And this is it's an observation kit that visitors to the park can sign out. We've been getting really good uptake on this. Inside that, there's a star finder dial for searching the stars in the night sky. There's an astronomy set of binoculars in there, the Celestron astronomy binoculars. There's a red headlamp, and we also include a monthly guide to what's in the sky at night. So this has been a big uptake for this, and we signed out quite a few of these. Our partner in all of this, and this would not have been possible in 2018 to get this designation, was the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. And they've worked closely with the parks in our Parks Canada system for their certification, and they they administer and been involved with the creation of 13 dark sky preserves in our park system. And there's one park that we have, Waterton Lakes and Glacier National Park, which border both Canada and the US. That's one that's under the IDA's designation, the International Dark Sky Association. So this is kind of our Canadian equivalent to the IDA. These are some pictures that were taken in Terra Nova National Park by David Newberry, and David again is is the member that has spearheaded a lot of our projects, a lot of our education campaign in Terra Nova National Park, and has guided us through the certification process. All volunteer time. He travels out from St. John's to work with us. It's a 2.5-hour drive to Terra Nova National Park. So I want to thank Dave once again. So these are some of his photos that were taken in the park. Interesting name to this one, the Pac-Man Nebula. The Horsehead Nebula. This was taken in the winter, this one here. This one is most visible here in this area. And I'm just going to show you a quick little time lapse of some shots that Dave did with his camera while he stayed in our lodging there in Terra Nova National Park. So he set up his camera on a tripod, and I think every every 30 seconds the camera took a picture, and he ran them together. The flashing you see on the trees is actually from vehicular headlights as they travel through the Trans-Canada Highway through the park. So we are in a pretty rural area, so you're not going to see a lot of cars go by at night. Anyway, that's it for me, and I would just like to say that I've been inspired by some of the presentations as far as the potential in tourism. We are just at the beginning of discovering the potential in Terranova National Park for tourism, and I think we're going to have to add some new facilities to facilitate some of these backcountry and these diversified lodging experiences where you can see the night sky. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I'm see if I can bring myself back to you guys now on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. That was brilliant. Really, really lovely. Lots of comments coming in on the chat. Cara Loftus in Mulranny reckons that she's practically your neighbour across the ocean. We're that close. And somebody else made the comment that the travel time from Newfoundland to Dublin is about the equivalent from Dublin to North Mayo. So we've lots in common. So we're just going to ask one question before we come back together at the panel. And there was a good question there that came from Charles Smith, and he was asking how far the park was from the sea. In Mayo, we have the problem with wind and salt spray for electrical installations. And he also mentioned difficulties with wind and how that would impact on tents and wild camping in Mayo.
Oh, sorry, that's my answering machine cutting in. Just 1 second. Sorry.
That's okay, no problem.
Yeah. Okay. I apologize for that, but this is live, right? We can. That's what happens when you're doing this from home.
These things happen. We're all friends anyway. We don't need to worry about those things.
Even though Terranova National Park is located on the ocean, on the east coast, it's up in the finger of the sea. It's a Newman Sound fjord, so we don't get the strong ocean spray that you might get, for example, at Cape Spear, which is the most easterly point of North America. We are up in a finger of the sea, so it's a little more gentle that we get in there. Most of any electrical that we have near the coast is solar powered, and we do have some electrical on some of our buildings that have been decommissioned now because of course light near the water will attract fish unnaturally to these light locations. So under the guidelines, the Parks Canada guidelines, we can't have artificial light within 30 meters of the water.
Okay.
I hope that answered part of the question.
We can come back to it if it hasn't. Okay. So I just want to direct everybody to the new Menti meter before we gather everyone back to the panel. So if you all go to menti.com and to use the code 4641 4166. I'll read that again in a moment. And we want you to put in your recommendations for Sujay's list. So what places do you think should be added to Sujay's app? So again, it's menti.com and the code is 4641 4166. And I'll be handing you back to Georgia, but in the meantime, we'd love to hear your recommendations. Handing back to you now, Georgia. Yeah.
Max, I'm just going to do a, sorry, Max, I'm just going to do a screen share so we can see it
okay.
coming in. So there we go. We have a few anyway. Galloway Forest Dark, so the UK's first dark sky park, rightly so on there. Terranova National Park, Oasis Terranova National Park,
I don't know, can you make your screen a little bigger, Georgia?
Oh,
It's
sorry.
small to see. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm just.
We've too many windows open.
I have too many windows open. You're right, Max. Yeah. Let's see. Is that it? No.
Yeah, that's it. Perfect.
Thanks, Max. Yeah. There we go. So we've Death Valley, California. We have Cranbourne Chase, Dorset, the Burren. We're great to see the Burren on. Allihies on the Beara Peninsula. Burrishool Abbey in Mayo. Great, that's the spot for a Newport Astronomy Club. 12 Bends, San Pedro de Atacama. Wow, we've a lot. Sujay, I'll bring you all in now as panelists, so we can perhaps have a look at that together. So just bear with me, Sujay. You might like to comment and see if any of those are already on, perhaps, and tell us a little bit more while we're just bringing everyone back together.
Two of them are already, but I'm seeing a lot of new suggestions, so that's great. Thank you all for your beautiful suggestions.
Well, we'll share that afterwards, and thank you to everyone for participating in that. So Mags and myself will just keep an eye on the questions and answers. I'll see if I can get one first. Charles, for Finon. Finon, do you agree that non-pub related cultural events could be more effectively linked with Dark Sky events? The Henrik Boll Cultural Festival in Achill, Westport Bluegrass Festival, Blues Festival in Castlebar, etc., etc.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned in the presentation, we do have a lack of nighttime evening experiences that aren't linked to dining or going to the pub. So the visitor experience doesn't end at 6 o'clock. So we do need a stronger menu of experience for people all around the region. And I mentioned that Dark Skies tourism, it's of interest to the mainstream visitor, coming to the area. But the biggest segment of the biggest kind of visitor segment coming to Ireland right now, their primary motivation is exploring the culture here. So connecting cultural events with the Dark Skies, I think there's huge potential there for sure.
I think so too. Thank you. One for Sonal from David Moore. Sonal, what fraction of your nights are clear?
All right, so I'm an electrical engineer, so I understand more of voltage and current. So I probably cannot answer that in more technical terms. But I would say that it's probably, you can see the Milky Way really clearly. And in terms of how much the overcast is, I think probably it is almost like 200 to 250 clear days in Ladakh.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. You have a few more than we have. Just great. Very good. So just take one more, and then I'll hand over to Max. Frank Prendergast has asked, and this is, I guess for David, when vehicles arrive at a dark sky viewing place, headlights destroy the dark adapted eyes of those who have already arrived. I think you noted that, David. Cars and viewers need to be spaced well apart, so getting your eyes accustomed to the dark takes about 20 minutes, which is a very good point.
Yeah, that viewing location at Sandy Pond has 2 large parking lots. So what we'll do, we'll send the vehicles to the first parking area, and then we will stop all traffic. Then we'll go to the second parking lot and set up our equipment. Okay, so that works quite well.
That's a good tip for us as we get busier in the future.
Yeah.
Mags, I might hand over to you if you have any questions.
I'm just going through the Q&A there. Let's see. A really good one from Wendy Stringer, and she's wondering, are there any bears? So she's saying it's obviously aimed at David in Canada and not the national park in Mayo. But I guess it is a consideration, people out at night and bears. Yeah.
Yeah, there are bears in Terranova National Park. We have the black bear, that's our native bear. Sometimes polar bears will show up on the coast of Newfoundland, but not common in Newman Sound and Terranova National Park. as long as you keep your area clean and tidy and there's no food, for example, inside your oasis or inside your authentic, you're good there. And wherever you go in the park, keep smelly things away from where you're doing your observation. We've never had a bear attack in Newfoundland, in the island portion of the province. We've never had a bear attack. Yeah. And that's our native species, the black bear. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose one thing that when Karen and Yolanda were visiting us last year, and you do have a lot of education programs around that kind of thing and how to deal with those kind of things that we would be completely unfamiliar to us. We might just have inquisitive sheep coming up around our tents rather than hungry bears. Sorry, I'm just going back to the Q&A again. There's a question there actually for ourselves and MPWS and Fáilte, but I don't know if William's still on the line. It was about MPWS and Fáilte collaborating to consider providing similar permanent camping facilities to encourage nature. Oh, it's disappeared. Nature something. And I suppose that is for camping facilities, we don't provide them in the national parks in Ireland. I know Fáilte have some camping facilities permanent on some of their properties, but it's not something that we have done in our national parks in Ireland. But what I would say is that there are a lot of private landowners around our national parks, and there probably is planning permission, but that would need to be applied for. But what I would say is that working in the national parks and meeting, especially in Ballycroy, there's a huge interest in exploring and experiencing the dark skies, but also the national park as well during the daytime. And camping facilities are something that we're missing in the region, I think. We do have them in Achill and Ballina. But it is something, it's an opportunity for, the local community, I think. But it isn't something that we have explored within MPWS, but something to put up the line. I might come back to Georgia if she's seen any other questions.
Yeah, that's just to echo, that's a very good point. We're here to talk to local businesses and encourage them, and you're dead right, Mags, to put that out there, that there's an opportunity for local businesses. John Carty from GMIT says, fascinating presentations, thanks. He works in higher education, tourism and hospitality and research in GMIT Galway. Would welcome the panel views on what educators can do to support dark sky tourism, particularly in terms of research projects. Perhaps Finan, you might have a point on that. Anything that would help? Walter, perhaps?
Yeah, we're always looking for, we engage regularly with PhD students conducting research into different tourism products and where they're going. So yeah, obviously we would welcome, and we always do when we're approached by the third level PhD students or master's students looking to conduct research, and we support them any way we can. Of course, we love it. It takes a bit of pressure off us, so it's great.
It's good to have that data to back it up as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, Sonal, we have a question for you. Have you and your team developed a methodology for recording and preserving the local stories and folklore that you hear during your training sessions? That's interesting.
Yes, we've actually started to do that. The only thing is that the local language there is Tibetan, because it's very close to Tibet. So we're trying to find a good interpreter who could actually translate all of the stories that we hear from the indigenous people into, Hindi and English and, languages that are, more spoken by the masses, and see how we can preserve that. So that all of that folklore and the heritage astronomy that, people from the Indus Valley civilization has, that can actually be preserving. So yes, we've started just doing that.
Be a lovely publication to see if I don't know if you put them on your website or resources. It would be great to see. Thank you. Okay, Maura Fay has asked, I might put this to David, how do we start, actually, yeah, how do we start to prepare to become a dark park location? And I know, David, your accreditation system is different to the one we came in on, but you might still give a couple of tips from an international perspective of how a new dark sky park can get going.
Yeah, I would say the first thing you would have to do is reach out to membership from the IDA, in your case, and bring them in and help. They would help you do an inventory of probably lighting in the park, and perhaps some redundant lighting or lighting that's not required, and do an inventory of that and come up with a plan on how to remove or to alter or to modify these offending lights. That's the first step. To take sky quality measurements of a dark sky and find locations for public viewing is another important thing to do, and to build a communication plan on how to communicate to the public, to the visitors, and to the locals in the area. Like a lot of other parks, we have towns in the area that have lighting in them. So we've gone out to community groups in the area. We've gone out to the mayors of some of the municipalities in the area and presented to them the value of preserving the night sky. But I think the IDA would give you some direction on how to get that certification. Or you can even reach out to members of the Royal Astronomical Society as well, and they will help. I would assume the process is very similar.
I'll pop in the IDA website just in the chat there, because yeah, it is a very similar process. And we also have, for Dark Sky Ireland, we have a meeting on Monday night at 7 p.m. So people who are interested in getting involved in dark sky advocacy, that would be the perfect opportunity. And again, it's a free event. So there's the link going in for the IDA site. Thanks, David. It's good to know how similar the process is.
I've been spending a fair bit of time sourcing out lights. So if you want some links to some of the lights that we are sourcing, I'd be more than willing to send you those links.
That would be so helpful, for sure, yes.
And I might come in there because I really enjoyed the part of David's presentation where he's talking about the lights, and it wasn't like eliminating the lights. It was like having the right type of light in the right location where it was needed. Whereas I think sometimes we're just putting lights wherever we think the public will be for all of the night. So I thought that was really nice, and, you know, simple little fixes that are easy for most people to achieve.
And what we're finding more and more now too, we're going back to the use of light bulbs that we can change. Once you purchase some of these LED fixtures, and they're very expensive, we've spent $700–800 on some of these fixtures, to find out later that the intensity, the level of lux from these lights was too intense. So, and you can't, it's very seldom can you change the panels in these. So we're going to a simpler solution now, a $50 light fixture with a regular light socket where we can change the bulb. And when, you know, newer technologies bring that color temperature down, we can just purchase a new bulb and replace it at very low costs. So it's not rocket science.
I think that's the key, is simplicity, so that we can get this right, because they are very small changes. And we have a poll ready for the as we close up the session, to ask our audience what change they're going to make to become dark sky friendly. So folks, you can think of that while we have a quick look for any other questions that have been voted up in the little chat box here. So just bear with me a second.
There's one there for Sujay, actually. And I guess, you know, in all his experiences traveling, what has been one of your wow moments when looking at the night skies?
Well, it's since I'm accustomed to the night sky in Paris, which is perhaps not more than 40 stars or celestial objects in the sky on a given night, I kind of lose my sense of direction in a very dark night sky. And that kind of surprises me when and repetitively, and I love that. That's perhaps the the most beautiful, that's the most memorable experience in dark night skies. I don't have a fancy story, sorry.
That's perfect. We have a question for Finan. PJ's picture taken from Clare, Ireland, which you may not have seen, Finan, that was on the earlier in the week, contains a lot of light pollution seen from Westport and Castlebar. Any projects to remedy this? I think you're saddled with the light pollution fix.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I'm the right person to talk to necessarily about it. George, you actually might be better positioned to talk about the local authorities' strategy in terms of their lighting strategy.
Yeah, we are working with a lot of local authorities through Dark Sky Ireland. So I've popped in darksky.ie in the chat box. Also, Mayo Dark Sky Park has a light pollution section on there. Mayo County Council are very proactive, I would say, as a local authority. But the simplest things is for us to make changes ourselves as well. Obviously, the public lighting is one issue, which I think we are making progress on. But we also have to take responsibility, and I'm going to take the liberty of sharing a very quick infographic because this is all you need to do, really. Get your lights angled down. It's repeating what David was showing us earlier. Your lights down, only have them on when you need, pointed at what you need, and keep that colour to the warm end of the spectrum. It is really that simple. So if you can help us by supporting calls to the public authorities, and we do need a national policy. So again, I would call on you to join us. And let me just see who was that asking. I think it was Maura. If you can join us on Monday nights, that would be really, really helpful. Okay, another question for Sujay. Did you provide information on access to public remote access to radio telescopes?
I thought about it, and the arbitrage I made was to not do it in favor of simplicity, to be honest. The app would necessitate some heavy coding, and I don't mind that. But as far as the users go, the interface would become slightly more onerous and difficult to use. Although that remains a good idea, and I keep it in my at the back of my mind. But I decided against it in favor of simplicity.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we might just take maybe two more. Mags, I don't know if you want to take a couple of questions, and then I'll put a poll in for one change we can make.
Okay. There's one coming from Siobhan, and I don't know, can anyone answer it here? Maybe Finan might be able to. Would anyone know what, if any, planning permission would be needed for a current B&B to add any of the camping options to their properties? So I don't know, has Fáilte Ireland ever...
Oh, that's a minefield. I'm not answering that. Yeah. I'm going to get myself in trouble. No way.
But are you aware of any B&Bs maybe that have a camping facility attached to them?
I am aware of a number in Mayo as well that have some glamping pods associated with their B&Bs. So it is something that is being done. I'm thinking of 2 locations in North Mayo. But look, when it comes to planning, your first port of call has to be the local authority, I'm afraid.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, if other people have gone down the road,
absolutely,
I guess it would be maybe an idea for people that are thinking of exploring those options to, to maybe make contact with what's out there at the moment and how, they went about it. And,
that's the advice I give anybody developing a new experience, is always have a look at what's out there first. Steal some ideas, certainly, but it's great fuel for the imagination, and you'll see what's working and what isn't working. So that's always good advice. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Finan. And another question there. I'm a newcomer here. I live above the Arctic Circle on top of Norway. Wow, you're very welcome, Bernd. We have discussed establishing a dark sky area of some sort in a local national park, which is located at the border to Russia and Finland. So more of a statement, but there, I mean, I might go back to Georgia there. Those are questions I think that Georgia gets a lot from members of the public about setting up some kind of dark sky area with, you know, accreditation. I don't know, Georgia, do you want to make any comments on that?
Well, all I can say is the International Dark Sky Association has a fantastic amount of information for all countries. So I would advise you to look at darksky.org. There is a new survey out specifically for the needs of the international community, which is on their website at the moment. And I can follow up for all attendees with a couple of links. So I would, yeah, definitely say look at their website and try and form a group locally, and let's network and, you know, help each other. It's in everyone's benefit, I think. Okay, well, folks, we might maybe just have a last word from maybe one point from each of our panelists just to close off. And if I can share again that I think I've put the Menti link in, I might just share it one more time to have a look at one change that everyone can make as a takeaway. So I'll pop that in, and our panelists can just be thinking of a closing comment each, which would be nice. So maybe Sonal, we haven't been back to you for a while. If there's a closing comment that you'd like to give, maybe a bit of advice or anything that you've found, you know, to remark on from today, anything at all?
Well, I would start by saying that, you know, great presentations from Fionn and Sujay and David. I mean, there's so much learning. And for somebody like me who doesn't come from that background, it was a really lot of information, you know, to learn. I would just say that, you know, from our experiences of running this project, you know, it's been a very small pilot. It's just been 2 years since we've been running it. I think that astrotourism has great potential to create socio-economic development in something that has not really been explored and it's still untapped. I'm not saying that, you know, it has potential to kind of bring development on the scale of, you know, the way tourism does, but I think it still has a lot of ground to cover in terms of integrating it into mainstream tourism. And when it does, I think those you know, lesser known remote communities which have that kind of an asset can be directly built into that entire chain. So yeah, I mean, I think I just lean on to astrotourism for that.
Thank you, Sonal. I think we can learn an awful lot from the information you've given us. It's very transferable, even though we are not as remote as you are, obviously, but there's a lot to learn. Thank you. Finon, would you like to give us a parting comment?
Well, I suppose the important thing from our point of view in terms of really getting the most out of the dark sky areas is driving awareness of them. So, you know, you're talking about the light pollution from Castlebar and Westport, and that's impacting the experience on Clare Island. And, you know, there is the lighting strategy from the local authority, but it's the people we need to be more cognizant of their own lighting around their own properties. But I mean, those people aren't going to be motivated to do anything unless they know what the asset is. So an awareness program that educates, that brings them out into dark skies, that makes them look up and appreciate what's above their heads at night. That's the starting point, I think. And that's where we'll get the biggest, that's where we're going to achieve our greatest ambitions. And the other thing then is, apart from the installations like David was showing us there, those accommodate, like amazing stuff, you know, but capital projects requiring, you know, significant resources to put them in place. There's lots of other stuff that we can be doing collectively, and our collective reach can be significant when we work together as communities and as an industry, and putting in the simple things, like I mentioned, putting the deck chairs out front with your blanket and your binoculars. Look at, these are the simple things we can start doing and start talking about the dark skies on our websites and with our visitors. It's all about driving that awareness and making it accessible from today, not just waiting for a planetarium to be in place, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Be proactive. Thanks, Finon. Sujay, over to you.
Well, first and foremost, thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to be a speaker on the panel. It's a real privilege. And perhaps if there are any dark sky friendly or hotel owners or proprietors in the audience, I think it all starts from knowing the basics of the basic principles of good lighting. The IDA has created a very simple to understand slide on the five principles of good lighting. Even if we can adopt and apply these basic principles of good lighting, I think we can go a long way in limiting light pollution at our own scale. That's all.
Thank you. Great. Thanks very much, Sujay.
Thanks.
And David, final comment from you?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we are at the infancy stage of astrotourism. And some of these ideas that I saw today, including the one from Sujay's presentation of the glass pyramid, these are incredible ideas, and we're just starting to get into astrotourism here. So there's a lot of potential for growth, and I would like if we could have a copy of one of the presentations from this seminar, if we could, just for some ideas that we could share, or even reach out in form of an email to us for some ideas. The other thing I'd like to say is that Newfoundland, Labrador is a large area with very few people and a lot of dark places. So it's an ideal location for night sky viewing. It's very rural. Our entire province only has a population of about 520,000 people. So there's a large landmass, a lot of large open areas for viewing. And we're only about 3,100 kilometers from Dublin, to give you an idea of how far away we are. So we'd like to welcome you to our province and to Terra Nova National Park in particular. Anytime. I'll be your host.
Thank you very much. As Carol said earlier, we are practically neighbours. So.
Yeah. And there were lots and lots of offers to try out your raindrop shaped, the Oasis it's called, yeah. So I think we're all very jealous of the infrastructure that you have in the national park there.
Thank you, folks. And Mags, any final thoughts from you? While you're having a think, I'll just share the feedback on the one change. But if you've any,
so I guess my feedback relates to the visitors that we are meeting coming into the national park here in Mayo. They're all really wanting to experience the Dark Sky Park and where to go. And we've obviously got designated points within the national park that we can direct people to, but there are so many more offerings, and I think Finon has gone through them, that are possible. And I really think when visitors are coming to an area, they shouldn't be finding out maybe about the Dark Sky Park when they arrive at the national park. I think that people arriving into their B&B or their hotels, they should be aware straight away that we've got this amazing asset to sell, because they're going to go away then and tell their friends, and it's going to attract more people to the area, particularly at the off-peak seasons. So we've got this resource and we can definitely utilize it. And I think the Dark Sky Friendly, it's not just either for the visitors, it's for ourselves, for our ecology and conservation and nature. And by protecting the dark skies, we're going to be protecting the landscape as well.
Absolutely. I think that's very well said to close our webinar. Thank you, Mags, and thank you to all our panelists for joining us from far and wide. I think, as I said, the future is exciting. I don't want to say it's bright, let's say the future's dark, and we can do something with that, and let's work together on it. I think that's the biggest asset we can have for this. So thank you to everyone who's joined us. I'm just going to share the final screen for the events that we have left, because Dark Sky Week is not over yet. We still have 3 more days, and I hope that you will join us. We'll look at all the comments. Sorry we couldn't get to all the questions, but we will respond if we can at all, and we'll share all the comments with our panelists. So thank you to everyone, and we hope to see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.